In the deep void of space, where stars flickered like the last embers of ancient fires, a quiet council gathered. The Velari, the oldest known race in the galaxy, met beneath the glowing crystals of their high chamber. These beings had lived for millennia, seen empires rise and fall, and watched civilizations burn themselves out in wars they could not contain. They had seen something once, something terrible, and now it was stirring again. Elder Varn stood in silence as a silver. Mist danced around the glowing sphere in the center of the chamber. It was a galactic map, and one corner pulsed red. The system's name was Terra. Has the council confirmed it? Asked Elder Dal, his voice brittle like old glass. Varn nodded. Yes, the humans have passed the Helix realm. Their expansion has begun. A murmur passed through the council. One elder shivered. Another covered his eyes. They are moving fast, Varn said. Too fast, just like before. The Velari had warned the galaxy a century ago, when Earth first activated its first warp gate. The signs had been there even then. A species born on a death world, rising with speed never seen before, advancing without guidance, evolving without permission. Now, they were entering sectors near younger species territories, not ready for contact, let alone conflict. A message was sent, not to Earth, but to the rest of the galaxy. Do not provoke the Terrans. They are not like us. They will not stop. Far from the Velari chambers, a Terran starship cruised through the deep black. The Resolute was an explorer-class vessel, equipped with diplomatic sensors, scientific labs, and a small but deadly escort of gunships. Captain Mark stood near the front observation window. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man, calm but alert. His eyes scanned the stars ahead. Helix cluster is 2 days away, his second officer said, checking the nav screen. No recent contacts, but there are rumors of ships in hiding. Mark nodded. Keep shields at standby. If the rumors are true, we're not alone. The crew moved quietly, professionally. They had been trained for this, the edge of new space. Some called it the frontier. Others called it the border of trouble. A junior officer approached. Sir, we've picked up chatter on the long-range comms. Someone's broadcasting warnings. Mark raised an eyebrow. To us? No, sir, the officer said. About U.S. Meanwhile, in a system not far from Earth's newest colonies, another race prepared for confrontation. The Delvok were proud, sharp-scaled, and militaristic. They were not ancient like the Velari, but they had held power in their region of space for centuries. And they didn't like outsiders. Especially not humans. Commander Jern of the Delvok fleet stood inside a fortress-styled war room, examining a live feed of human ships establishing orbit near a neutral trade post. They move as if they own the stars, Jern growled. Arrogant species, soft-fleshed monsters. His advisor hesitated. The Velari have advised against action. Jern scoffed. The Velari grow old and soft. We are Delvok. We do not bow to warnings. Within hours, Delvok warships began assembling. Near the Helix border, back aboard the Resolute, Captain Mark read the Velari's warning message, which had leaked through an open channel. It was written in ancient script, translated by the ship's AI. In fire, they were born. In war, they matured. The Terrans are not invaders by choice, but once moved, they cannot be stopped. We learned this once. We survived, but barely. Mark. Read it twice. We didn't even fight them, he muttered. His second officer leaned in. Captain, are they talking about us? Or something we don't know about yet? Mark didn't answer. On Velari Prime, the elders closed their meeting in silence. Varn looked out at the stars. They won't listen, he whispered. They never do, said Elder Dal. The chamber dimmed, and the map faded to black, except for the single red pulse on Terra. Asterisk, the Delvok fleet moved like a wall of steel across the void. Dozens of sharp-edged warships, bristling with weapons, hovered just outside the Helix cluster, facing the invisible line that marked the edge of Earth's expanding territory. Commander Jurin stood at the center of the lead ship, arms folded, his glare fixed on the holographic projection of the human exploration route. A red line, drawn in bold strokes, marked the trail of Terran colonies spreading across nearby sectors. "They move without permission," Jurin growled. "They claim peace, yet their growth is war." His advisor stepped forward. "The humans have made no hostile moves, Commander. They send diplomats, not destroyers." Jurin snapped. "Diplomats are always the first wave. They smile while their ships take root." The War Council murmured in agreement. The Delvok had once controlled half this region of space. Now, humans had arrived fast, confident, and unafraid. Pointed at the border. "Send them a message. Tell them we don't want contact. We will not let them pass." On board the Resolute, Captain Mark received that message. It was short, cold, final. "Turn back. Human presence is not welcome. Entry will be considered an act of war." Mark read it aloud to his bridge crew. The words echoed in the silent command center. "Well, that's one way to say hello," muttered the helmsman. Mark didn't respond. He leaned over to study the message log. No mention of negotiations. No offer of parley. No name signed to the threat. He turned to his second officer. "Prepare a diplomatic reply. Keep it polite but firm. Let them know we're only passing through, and we're not here to start trouble." She nodded. What if they refused to listen? Mark's voice was quiet, but resolute. "Then we log everything. And we don't shoot first." Back on Villari Prime, the elders watched transmissions in silence. The Delvok had ignored the warnings. Their fleet was in position. The Terrans had replied with peace, as expected. But the elders knew how this story would end. Elder Varn closed his eyes. Another young race tries to test fire with water. Elder Dal added, "And they will learn. The fire always burns through." The Villari had once been like the Delvok, bold, proud, certain of their strength. Long ago, when Earth had first reached the stars, the Villari tried to guide them with threats. What came next had nearly ended their empire. The galaxy had forgotten, but the elders had not. Days passed. The Resolute continued its mission, escorted by 2 light defense ships. They did not cross the Delvok's blockade. They held the line. They waited. Then came the signal. It was a scramble of emergency tones and distorted cries. A human science. Outpost near the Helix border, unarmed, peaceful, and clearly marked, had gone dark. Surveillance satellites showed flashes of energy near the station before the feed cut out. Then silence. Mark's knuckles went white as he watched the playback. "Do we have survivors?" he asked. "Unknown," replied the comms officer. Rescue shuttles were blocked by jamming fields. Someone wanted them gone. The air on the bridge turned cold. No orders were spoken. No threats were sent. Mark simply walked to the command console and entered one command. Alert Earth Command. Outpost lost. No provocation. Awaiting response. Elsewhere, in the dark chambers of the Villari Council, the elders lit a blue flame at the center of the room. It was a tradition that had not been used in centuries. A signal. A warning to all. Who remembered? Varn whispered as the fire crackled. "They have been struck." Dal finished the thought. "Now they will rise." The push begins in the stillness of orbit. The Resolute hovered like a patient blade, silent but sharp. Inside, the atmosphere was no longer calm. The crew had seen the footage blurry. Images of explosions, bodies drifting, the final seconds of the science outpost as it was wiped away. Captain Mark stood in the center of the war room with a grim expression. The outpost was unarmed. It had no defenses, no soldiers, just scientists, medics, and researchers. The Delvok had crossed a line. No one on board said it aloud, but everyone knew. War had been declared. A message came through from Earth Command. Simple, direct. Task Force Ember is being deployed. The Terran response has begun. You are to join the fleet. Coordinate with Rear Admiral Troy aboard the carrier Iron Will. Mark nodded once, then turned to his crew. Set a course. Maximum speed. No one hesitated. The Velari watched from afar, their observation vessels cloaked, distant, quiet. The Council had sent one message to all races on record, an old warning made new again. Do not interfere. Humanity has been struck. They will now return fire. Some species took it seriously and pulled their ships back. Others, like the Delvok, doubled down, confident in their fleets and old tactics. They had no idea what was coming. In the darkness of the Helix sector, Task Force Ember dropped from warp. Like falling thunder. 4 battleships, 10 cruisers, 20 corvettes, 2 carriers. And at the heart of it, the Resolute, now repurposed for battlefield strategy and stealth operations. The Delvok had expected a political message, maybe a delay, maybe sanctions. Instead, they got fired. The first Terran assault came without warning. A single Delvok refueling platform blinked out of existence in a precise strike. No civilian lives were harmed. No mess. Just a clean, sharp elimination of a key node. Then came the second wave, crippling their forward recon stations in under 3 minutes. On the Delvok homeworld, panic broke out. No declarations had been made. No talks. No ultimatums. Just cold, exact retaliation. Mark sat in the command seat aboard the Resolute, watching the coordinated attack unfold across the holomap. All targets neutralized in Sector 4. Came the report. Move us to the next front, Mark said. And keep. The fleet split. Fast, small groups. Hit and vanish. His plan was clear. Don't engage in a long war. Break them fast. Show the Delvok that Earth doesn't linger in battle. It finishes it. Meanwhile, scattered Delvok fleets tried to regroup, but they couldn't keep up. Terran ships were faster, smarter. Their is predicted moves before they were made. Their crews didn't waste time in argument. They followed orders, adapted on the fly, and struck with military precision. In 3 days, the Delvok lost 5 stations, 2 battle groups, and control over 3 key sectors. Even worse, their pride began to crack. On Velari Prime, the elders gathered again around the flame. Elder Dahl spoke softly. Do they remember now? Varn closed his eyes. They will, but too late. He opened a small container beside the council seat. Inside, a dusty plaque marked with alien symbols older than most civilizations still standing. He placed it in the center of the chamber and said, "This was given to us the first time we challenged them. We thought them wild. We thought them primitive." He looked around the room. We were wrong. Back in orbit above the captured sector, the Iron Will sent out a final transmission to the Delvok leadership. Mark's face appeared on every Delvok command screen. You struck first. We asked for peace. You answered with blood. Earth doesn't forget, and we don't repeat warnings. The message was short. The Delvok fleet commanders watched it in silence, not knowing whether to answer or run. Because from behind the Terran fleet, something else was coming. The next phase, humanity's advance. The stars over Sector 9 dimmed as a shadow moved across them. A massive Terran dreadnought. The Titan's reach slid into position above a Delvok. Stronghold. Below, orbital defenses powered up, scanning wildly. They were too late. From high orbit, Earth's fleet began its next phase. Dominate, disable, Dismantle dot inside the bridge of the Resolute, now acting as command for ground and intelligence ops. Captain Mark studied the fleet movements. Smaller Terran strike groups had broken into the nearby Delvox sectors, disabling communication hubs, weapons caches, and fuel lines without leaving behind a single survivor to regroup. All reports confirm Delvox Sector 6, 7, and 8 are neutralized, said the intel officer. Our casualties remain at 0. Mark gave a quiet nod. Then it's time to hit where it hurts. He tapped a control screen, opening a file marked Op. Emberclaw, a plan for an infiltration mission into the Delvox Central Fleet Command. The Delvox, now in disarray, still clung to pride. In the capital war room on their home planet, military, leaders argued, barked, and threw blame across the table. Admiral Cole, one of their oldest warriors, slammed a clawed fist on the table. They are not like the others. You said they were fragile, that they'd talk, retreat, negotiate. Another general hissed, we weren't ready. The Terrans move like machines. Cole shook his head. No, not machines. Something worse. They move with purpose. Task Force Ember, led by Mark aboard the Resolute, executed Operation Ember Claw with surgical precision. The goal, cut the head off the Delvox fleet by disabling its mobile command ship. Pride of Fire docked at a hidden station in a nearby gas giant system. Using stealth frigates, jamming tech, and precise jump timing, Mark and his team infiltrated the station. It was a risky move. Aboard a small boarding ship, Mark entered enemy territory with only 9 others. Inside the station, they moved like shadows, silent, calculated. No alarms were triggered. Power was shut down, backup lines severed, data centers wiped. They planted. A beacon inside the command core. Mark looked at the last terminal before setting the charge. A message was written in glowing Delvox script across the wall. Strength is survival. He whispered, then you should have learned ours. They escaped in under 15 minutes. Moments later, the Pride of Fire detonated in a quiet blue flash, no noise in the vacuum. But across the stars, the message was clear. Across the galaxy, other races watched and whispered. The Terrans had not responded with diplomacy. They had answered with overwhelming speed, control, and quiet fury. A name began circulating on independent communication networks, the Unstoppable Flame. The title wasn't given by humans. It was born from fear. On Velari Prime, Elder Varn received reports of new Terran tactics never seen before: multi-pronged wave strikes, energy absorption arrays, even temporary warp folds used for surprise jumps. He smiled softly. They are still evolving, still growing, even now. Elder Dal asked, do the others finally believe us? Varn replied, they do not need to believe. They only need to remember. The flame in the center of the chamber pulsed brighter, as if echoing Earth's heartbeat. Meanwhile, as the Delvox struggled to regroup, Earth sent its next message, not one of threats or destruction, but something worse for the enemy. They rebuilt. What the Delvox destroyed. In the ruins of the science outpost, Terran engineers returned, repairing labs, restoring systems, and placing sentry towers around the perimeter. Civilians were escorted back under full protection. Medical personnel arrived. The colony came alive again, faster, stronger, surrounded by orbiting ships. A single plaque was placed at the rebuilt center. We came in peace, and we're still here. From his observation deck, Captain Mark stared out at the stars, now filled with Terran ships. This isn't revenge, he said quietly to his second officer. It's a reminder, she nodded, and they won't forget it again. Asterisk. The Velari remember the halls of the Velari High. Archive were carved from the bones of an extinct star beast remains, preserved by time and reverence. Light passed. through shimmering crystal veins in the walls, casting pale gold onto scrolls, tablets, and recordings older than most species had words. Elder Varn moved slowly down the central path, carrying a sealed memory core. Elder Dal walked beside him. "We must show them," Varn said. "Will they listen?" Dal asked. "No," Varn replied, "but they must see." They stopped before a massive vault door. As it opened, a soft hum echoed out. Inside were records never shared, moments the Velari had hidden for thousands of years. At the center was a holographic recording labeled Terran Encounter, Cycle 001. It began to play. The image showed a young Velari fleet, long ago, encountering an unknown human vessel drifting in the stars. Curious and cautious, the Velari approached. Their messages were polite but patronizing. They had offered help, warnings, commands. The reply from Earth had been simple. "We are explorers, not servants." When the Velari tried to force them to dock, the humans responded swift, unexpected, and precise. A single Terran ship had escaped a 6-ship ambush, disabled 2 pursuers, and jumped into uncharted space. The incident had shocked the Velari leaders, but they had kept it secret, hoping to guide or contain the humans over time. They never could. Back in the present, Elder Varn faced the Council once more. It has begun again. But stronger now, the humans are no longer explorers. They are protectors, builders, warriors, all in one. He turned to the younger Velari, those who had never seen war. "We must not fight them. We must not guide them. We must not resist." "But they are only a few thousand years into space," one younger voice argued. "How can they be so powerful?" Dal answered gently, "Because they are not like us. They grow in pain, in fire. They unify in chaos." Across the galaxy, the Terran fleet held position after their latest strike. No Delvok response came. Instead, distant planets lit with signal species wanting dialogue, trade, or defense pacts with Earth. The shift was happening. Power was changing. Mark stood aboard the Resolute, staring at a newly received message. It was from Velari Prime, encrypted, unofficial. He opened it. The message wasn't long. "We will not stand in your way. We have tried before. We will not again. The stars are yours to walk. Just leave light in your footsteps." Mark passed the message to his second officer. "They're backing off," she said, stunned. Mark nodded. "They remember something we don't." She paused. "Should we be worried?" "No," he replied, then added quietly, "but maybe they should." In the deep vaults of Velari history, one ancient line glowed on a stone tablet, now translated by an eye. "From the world of storms, the children of flame will rise. Warnings will be ignored. Paths will burn. But through the blaze, hope will follow." The elders stared at it in silence. Dal whispered, "It was never about stopping them." Varn added, "It was about surviving them." The turning point above the smog-covered surface of Delvok Prime, the sky trembled. Thousands of Delvok citizens stared up as dozens of bright streaks crossed the atmosphere. These were not missiles nor bombs, but Terran warships. Precise, silent, watching. Orbit was no longer theirs. Control had shifted. In the Delvok High War Command, Admiral Cole stood frozen in front of a massive screen. Real-time feeds showed Terran fleets surrounding every major Delvok system. No shots fired. No threats sent. Just presence. Their defenses hadn't even slowed them down. One of Cole's aides stepped forward, voice shaking. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the Western Fleet. Their last signal was surrender." Cole's claws dug into the control panel. "Cowards." "No, sir," the aide said. "Survivors." Meanwhile, aboard the Resolute, Captain Mark received final orders from Earth Command. The campaign was to end. The fleet was not to annihilate, but to enforce surrender. Earth had no desire to destroy planets. That was not humanity's goal, but the message was now clear. Earth would never allow itself to be threatened. Again, Mark stood in front of his crew. No more strikes, no more invasions. We give them one chance. Send the terms to Delvok Prime. Disarm your fleets, open all occupied sectors, and hand over those responsible for the attack on our outpost. He paused, then added, and tell them we're watching. Down below, panic took over the Delvok Council. Their war leaders shouted across long tables, demanding action. One last attack. One last desperate stand. But Admiral Cole remained silent. Finally, he stood. You all mocked the elders when they spoke of the Terrans. You said we would crush them. You said they were weak. But now, you hide in bunkers while their ships control our sky. He turned and left the war room. Far from Delvok space, the galaxy reeled from what had happened. Messages flew between systems. The Delvok were crushed in 2 weeks. Earth didn't conquer, they disabled. Their fleets moved like ghosts. They rebuilt before the dust even settled. More races sent envoys to Earth, requesting peace treaties and technology exchanges. Even long hostile species now treated humanity as a superpower, and through it all, the Velari said nothing. They simply watched. One last act remained, desperate. To regain some form of power, the Delvok leadership launched a forbidden weapon, a planet killer, missile aimed at a Terran colony housing over 50,000 civilians. No warning. No demands. Just rage. But Earth had expected this. Within minutes, 3 Terran dreadnoughts moved. One intercepted the missile and vaporized it mid-flight. The others descended directly to the Delvok homeworld's outer rings. Then, for the first time, Earth sent a true message broadcast to the entire galaxy. Earth offered peace. You answered with death. This ends now. The message wasn't just from Mark. It was from the Terran Council itself. That night, Task Force Ember launched its final mission, Operation Iron Echo. A single orbital strike was fired. Not at cities, not at the people, but at the Delvok military center that housed their highest command. The blast destroyed it completely. And then, silence. No more fleets, no more threats, just a single quiet surrender. Back aboard the Resolute, Mark watched the final message from Delvok. We surrender. We will not rise again. His second officer asked, Is it over? Mark nodded. For them, she hesitated. And for us? Mark looked out into the black stars. Double quotes, no. Earth is just getting started. Asterisk the path unstoppable. The war was over. Delvok. Fleets were gone. Their weapons dismantled. Their leadership either surrendered or silenced. What remained of their once proud military now stood down, their flags lowered, their skies watched from above. But Earth didn't gloat. Instead, they rebuilt. In the ruins of Delvok defense stations. Terran engineers arrived, not with guns, but with tools and supplies. They restored power to civilian hospitals. They repaired water systems. They brought food. They brought medicine. A message was left on every Delvok system. We don't destroy civilizations. We protect our own. You attacked us. But we choose to rebuild. The galaxy was stunned. Many had feared humanity would wipe the Delvok off the map. Instead, Earth set a new standard. Power with purpose. Captain. Mark stood on the surface of a rebuilt colony. This one was once a Delvok mining town, now turned into a shared trade hub. Terran flags hung beside Delvok ones. The people, alien and human, worked together, quietly. Carefully. Mark walked through the crowd, nodding at both sides. His uniform was plain now. He no longer needed to show rank. His presence was enough. He found a young Delvok girl standing alone near a repair drone, watching him nervously. Her eyes were bright, but unsure. Mark knelt and handed her a datapad. "Here," he said gently. "This teaches your language. And ours, for the next generation." She took it with trembling hands, then nodded. A smile flickered on Mark's face. It wasn't victory. It was peace. Far away, deep within the ancient halls of the Lari Prime, the elders updated the archive. The final entry was short. They rose from a death world, shaped by hardship and pain. The stars tried to resist them. We tried to warn others. But nothing could stop them, not because they were cruel, but because they were determined. They carry fire not to burn, but to light the path. Humanity is no longer a question in the galaxy. They are the answer. Elder Varn placed the entry stone inside the central vault and sealed it. The blue flame in the chamber burned a little brighter. Back in Earth orbit, the Resolute prepared for its next journey. Not to conquer, not to avenge, but to explore again. A new star system had sent an open invitation. Peacefully, hopefully. Captain Mark stood in the command center once more. "Coordinates locked?" he asked. "Confirmed," replied the pilot. He took one last look at the stars ahead. The path was clear. The warnings were over. The galaxy knew now Earth would not be stopped. "Let's move," he said. And the Resolute jumped into the void. Asterisk.